In this video, we're going to look at how to add and modify goals for students who are in special education classes. Once you've entered the Special Education Manager, or SEM, you're going to go to the Power Tools option and type in the name of your student. Start with the last name, and it should automatically generate names in that field. If you prefer, you can also click on this arrow and you'll get a drop-down menu with all of the students in your school who you have access to. Okay, down here it says access reason. You're going to choose that you want to review their file, and then click open the IEP or the BIP. Oh, this window is pretty large right now. Let's see if we can do some resizing. There we go. Okay, so you'll notice that on the left-hand side, you have the option to expand this menu. Okay, doing so shows you all of the goals related to this student. If this student had a BIP, you would have that option down here, and you could see all of the behavior goals that this student has as well. To add a goal, you're going to go to Standard Goal up at the top here, and then add a standard or a goal. Okay, this student is going to be in the 8th grade. So we're going to start with T. In this box, I'm just typing T 0, 8, and then the subject, and I teach math, so I'm going to put an M. And now automatically it will put you with the first 8th grade math goal available in the system. You can click here to view a wide variety of 8th grade math goals that could be applied for this student. This student is in the modified academics class, so I want to choose one of the essential goals. Those are specifically for the students in modified classes. So let's say we want to do solving problems with operations. Okay, so I choose that. Now, you will already have entered your PLAF using the information in the previous video. Okay, so to enter your staff PLAF, you would say Get PLAF. You're going to go to Use Staff PLAFs. It's such a silly word. And type in your school. I'm teaching at Perry, so I'll type in Perry. And I don't want to show everybody, I only want to show the Perry staff. So there I am, Holly Kitson, update. And do I want to use the math PLAF that I wrote? Yes, I do. So close, and I want to append that to this goal. That means I'm just attaching it. If I double click in that box, I have access to all of the information on this student that I wrote in the PLAF. Going to the goal wizard is actually where we'll use, or this is the tool that we'll use to develop the goal in its entirety. The default state is very short, very brief, and it doesn't have all of the components that you need for a special education goal. So you're going to click on the goal wizard. The first thing they ask you about is the time frame. So you can choose to say in 36 instructional weeks, depending on the time frame that you're working with your students. You may want to change that. I sometimes will write by the end of his or her, grade level year. So in this case, her 8th grade year. And that way we have the entire year to work on mastering that goal. That's not always appropriate for your students. You really just have to have kind of a feel for how long it's going to take for them to master that goal. But you do want to build in enough time for your students to master the goal. So don't make it like by the end of the first 2 weeks of school, they'll be mastering it. Give yourself enough time to work on it and prove that they've mastered it by being able to generalize that skill. Okay, so we'll hit next. Now the conditions under which the student will master the goal. This is where you would type any modifications or accommodations that you're including in their IEP. So maybe they have preferential seating, meaning they can sit near the front of the class, or they need to sit in a specific spot in order to be productive. Maybe they have reminders to stay on task. Let's see what else. We could do manipulatives or a calculator, or even a supplemental aid. And you just list all of your accommodations that you want that student to have in your class in this section right here, and then you press next. You'll notice I ended it with a comma because this is going to create, as we go, a really long sentence, and we want to be grammatically correct. You can always go in and fix it later if you do forget to add in a comma or some kind of punctuation, but it's easier to do it as you go. So we hit next. I'm going to put my student's name, so I'm just going to write student here. Student will, and in this case I chose the goal, solving problems using operations. Well, you have to be a little more specific because typically your goals will involve many levels of skills combined into one idea. An 8th grader using operations to solve problems would be doing, work with exponents. They would be multiplying fractions, decimals. They might be working with square roots. Okay, this student in a math class, that's not where they are. They're probably working with basic addition and subtraction using a multiplication chart, and you have to specify what kind of operations they're going to use in this situation. The same goes for your reading goals, your science goals, social studies. You just want to make sure that you put in as much information as you can so that anyone looking at this will understand what it is specifically that you're working on with this student all throughout the year. Okay, so I will say this student will be able to add 2-digit numbers with regrouping. Okay, so that's her goal. Okay, and I'll hit next. I ended that with a period right there. It's because I felt like that was a good place to end my sentence. So it says, by the end of her 8th grade year, using preferential seating, reminders to stay on task, manipulatives, calculator, that probably should say a calculator, a supplemental aid, student will be able to add 2-digit numbers with regrouping. Okay, so success will be measured. How are you going to determine whether or not the student has met the requirements of your goal? Well, you can choose from a list, and really these are great. I find that daily work tests and quizzes is how I measure most of my students' goals, and they don't have to be paper tests. They can be performance tasks as well. So you can also specify the passing rate. So I'm going to observe her daily work tests and quizzes to figure out if she's passing or if she's mastering the goal. However, in order to have mastered, I have to set a certain criteria. So maybe I want her mastering by showing 80% mastery on all of her tests and quizzes. Maybe I want it to be 75. It depends on the student and the skill and what you feel like they actually need to be able to do in order to be successful in subsequent skills related to the same area. So I feel like she really needs to be able to regroup with probably about 80% accuracy. And, on her own using these tools. So I would say she can master this goal by earning a, let's say a grade of 80% or higher on, and you can specify the number of assessments that you want her to master this goal on. You can specify the number of questions she has to get correct. So some teachers will say, they need to get 3 out of 4 correct in 4 or 5 instances in order to master. This is really up to you, and it's just how you plan to assess the student and what you're expecting them to be able to do. So I'm going to say she needs to be able to make an 80 on 3 or more related assignments. And that's it. So I'm going to hit close. And down here you'll see that it populated this box with a whole long mess of goal. If we open it up, it shows you the entire sentence, and you can make changes here. Like I said, I wanted to say, oh, nope, a calculator and a supplemental aid, so I can add those in and close. And you do want to specify the position responsible. For this student, it would be a special education teacher. Now, you can also, since it's a drop-down menu, click down here at the arrow and select any of these special services, let's see. Okay. And that's it. That is all you need to be able to do. To create an objective to match that goal, which you may need to do for some of your students, you'll come over here to the objectives. Well, you see how this is still highlighted in red? Okay, I'm still working within that goal. I'm just going to add an objective related to it. I'm going to click Add Objective. And I'm going to begin typing my objective. Now, it's going to have the same components. You're going to need to make sure you have a time frame related to this objective. It may be shorter than a year. Maybe you want them to be able to, add one-digit numbers by December and add two-digit numbers by May or June. Okay, you'll also need to have conditions. So the accommodations that we talked about, like whether or not they're going to be able to use a calculator, whether they get teacher prompting to help them. The behavior is actually what you want them to be able to do. And then the criterion, which is just your mastery requirements. So how much of it do they need to be able to do on their own for them to have mastered the goal or the objective. Okay, here you don't have as much to fill out. You do want to specify who's in charge of this goal. I'm just going to type something. You choose whatever is appropriate for you here, and you can search through the drop-down menu for that. Another thing I don't think I addressed a minute ago is that the start date is something you may need to change. Okay, I don't want her to start this goal in the middle of June. That doesn't make any sense because she's not here right now. So if I double click, I have the option to go in and change it. You know what? We start school on August 25th. I think that's a good day for her to start that goal. Okay, then I can go back to I'm sorry, that was an objective. Then I can go back to my goal and make the same change. We want to start the goal and the objective both on August 25th. Okay, so it will automatically save. There's no save button that you need to push. Well, there is one here, but it doesn't do what you think it does. So automatically this should be saved in the system. Special Ed Manager can be a little finicky sometimes, so I recommend that once you have this typed up, you copy it and paste it into a Word document to ensure that you have a record of it, just in case for whatever reason you log in the next day and it's no longer there. You'd hate to do all that work and then not be able to access what you created for the student. Okay, so that is creating a goal and an objective in Special Ed Manager.